I buried my daughter 18 years ago. I stood at her grave every single Sunday from the day they lowered her into the ground until the morning my phone showed me something that should have been impossible. Her name on my screen. Her number calling me. At 3:12 inches the morning on a Tuesday in October. I answered, and the voice on the other end said, "Dad, I don't know where I am." Before I tell you what happened, let me tell you who she was. My daughter's name was Claire Elizabeth Holden. She was 22 years old when she died. She had her mother's green eyes and my stubborn jaw and a laugh that filled whatever room she was standing in. She was in her last year at the University of Tennessee, studying social work because she wanted to fix things that were broken. People, systems, families. She believed everything broken could be repaired if someone cared enough to try. She died on a rainy night in March, 18 years ago. She was driving back to campus after visiting us for the weekend. A delivery truck hydroplaned on the interstate and crossed the center dividing line. The impact was on the driver's side. The state trooper who called me at 1:17 inches the morning told me she hadn't suffered. He said it like it was supposed to help. It didn't help. My wife Linda and I drove to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in silence. I remember every mile of that drive, the way the rain hit the windshield, the way Linda held her own hands in her lap instead of reaching for mine. When we arrived, they took us to a small room off the main corridor. Private rooms are for devastating news. I already knew before they said a single word. They let us see her. Her face was peaceful, untouched. She looked like she was sleeping, and I stood there for a long time waiting for her chest to move. It never did. Linda collapsed against me, and I held her up, and I stared at my daughter's still face, and I felt the world end in a way that doesn't kill you. It just leaves you walking around in the wreckage. I signed every paper. I made every phone call. I chose the casket, the plot, the flowers. White roses because those were her favorite. I wrote the obituary alone at the kitchen table at 4 in the morning while Linda slept with the help of something the doctor prescribed. I wrote it, and I could not stop crying, and I kept writing anyway because someone had to. The funeral was on a Thursday. 80 people came. Her friends from school, her professors, kids she had mentored through a youth program she volunteered with. They were all destroyed. Young faces with red eyes who did not know what to say, and so they said nothing, and stood in clusters and stared at the ground. We buried her at Elmwood Memorial Park, beneath a maple tree she would have loved. After everyone left, I stayed. I watched the groundskeepers fill the grave. I needed to see it finished. I needed to understand that this was real, that the dirt was real, and the stone was real, and the name carved into it was real. Then I drove home, and I never felt at home again. Linda lasted 4 years before she left. Not because she stopped loving me, and not because I stopped loving her. Grief does something to a marriage that nothing can fix. We grieved differently, and those different griefs pushed us into different rooms until the rooms felt like different houses, and the houses felt like different cities. She moved to her sister's place in Charlotte. She remarried 6 years later. I understood. I wished her well, and I meant it. I kept Claire's bedroom exactly as she had left it the Sunday she drove back to school for the last time. Her textbooks on the desk, a half-finished bottle of lotion on the dresser, a poster of the Smoky Mountains on the wall that she had bought at a craft fair when she was 16. I kept her number in my phone. I kept the plan active. $40 a month, every month, for 18 years. $1,100 a year just to see her name in my contacts. Just to know that if I pressed call, something would ring somewhere, even if no one answered. People said I needed to let go. My brother told me I was punishing myself. My therapist, the one I saw for 2 years after Linda left, told me that holding on to objects was a normal part of grief, but that I needed to also allow myself to move forward. I sat in that office, and I nodded, and I drove home, and I did not change a single thing. You don't get over losing a child. You learn to carry it. You learn to build your life around the weight of it rather than under it. You function. You retire from your job, in my case 31 years as a structural engineer outside of Knoxville. You mow your lawn. You watch football on Sundays. You visit the grave every week with fresh flowers, and you talk to a stone, and you go home and you do it again the following Sunday. That was my life until October 14th, a Tuesday. I was asleep, which is not always something I can say. Sleep has not come easily since the night of that phone call 18 years ago. But that night, I had managed to sleep, and I was deep under when my phone started ringing on the nightstand. I grabbed it without looking. I assumed it was my brother in Ohio calling about something with our mother's estate, which we had been slowly settling since she passed in the spring. I looked at the screen to silence it before it went to voicemail. The name on the screen was Claire. Her contact photo looked back at me. A picture from her 20th birthday, laughing at something just outside the frame. I had taken that photo myself. I sat up in the dark and I could not move. The phone kept ringing. Her name, her photo, over and over. Her number had been disconnected for 16 years. I had tried calling it hundreds of times in the first years after she died. It always went straight to the carrier message. Number no longer in service. But I never deleted it. I never canceled the contact. And now it was calling me. I thought I was dreaming. I ran my thumb across the screen to make sure I was awake. The glass was cold and real. The ringing was real. On the 5th ring, I pressed answer. I held the phone to my ear, and for 4 seconds there was nothing. Silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Then breathing, slow and steady. Someone was there. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Dad. A voice. Soft, confused, afraid. My daughter's voice. I know my daughter's voice. I heard it every day for 22 years. I heard it in my dreams for 18 years after. The way she said that one word, the way she put weight on the second letter and let it trail, exactly the way she always said it when she was calling from the other room or from the car. My hands started shaking so badly the phone rattled against my ear. Dad, are you there? She sounded lost, not dead, not ghostly. Confused and frightened the way a person sounds when they are standing somewhere unfamiliar in the dark. I forced air into my lungs. I forced one word out. Claire. Silence. Then, slowly, yes. It's me. Something's wrong. I don't know where I am, and I don't know how I got here, and nothing makes sense. I stood up from the bed. I turned on the light. My brain was not working correctly. I knew what was real. I had identified her body. I had chosen her casket. I had watched them lower her into the ground. Dead is not a thing that reverses. Dead is the most final thing there is. Claire, I said, tell me what's happening. Where are you? She made a sound that broke my heart. I don't know. I'm in an apartment. I've been here for I don't know how long. I woke up here and there's a name on the mail that isn't my name, and there are pictures on the wall and I don't recognize any of them. I don't recognize myself in the mirror, Dad. I look older. I don't understand. What do you mean you don't recognize yourself? I said. I mean I look different. I look like I'm in my 30s or something. I remember the accident. I remember everything going dark. And then I woke up here and I don't know how much time has passed, and I'm scared. Her voice cracked on that last word the same way it always cracked when she was trying to be brave and failing. She was trying to be brave and failing on a phone that had been disconnected for 16 years. Can you get a street address? I said. Look out a window. Find a piece of mail. Give me something. I heard movement. Footsteps on a hard floor. The sound of a window being opened. Then her voice came back quieter. I see a street sign. Marker and elm. There's a building across the street that says Ashford Storage. What state? I said. Does anything tell you what state? She was quiet for a moment. Then, Georgia. There's a postcard on the counter from Savannah, Georgia. I wrote it down with a shaking hand. Marker and elm. Ashford Storage, Savannah, Georgia. My daughter's voice coming through an impossible phone call at 3. 12 inches the morning. Then the line went dead. Not faded out, not static, just gone. The same way it had always gone when I called that number. The number is no longer in service. I called back 17 times, same recording every time. I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table until the sun came up, and I looked at what I had written on the notepad. Then I drove to Elmwood Memorial Park. I needed to see the grave. I needed to see the stone with her name on it. I needed the dirt to be undisturbed. It was. Everything was exactly as it always was. The maple tree had gone orange for fall. The white roses I had left the previous Sunday were wilting in the small vase by the stone. I knelt down, and I put my hand on the ground, and I said her name, and the ground said nothing back. But she had said it back. An hour and a half ago she had said it back. I spent 3 days doing nothing except holding my phone and waiting. I barely ate. I did not answer the door when my neighbor knocked. I watched my call history obsessively. The entry at the top, showing Claire's name and the time and the duration. 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Not a dream, not a breakdown. 4 minutes and 51 seconds of my dead daughter telling me she did not know where she was. On the fourth night, the phone rang again. 2:58 a.m. Her name. I answered before the first ring finished. Dad. Her voice was steadier this time, but exhausted, like she had been walking for days. I'm here, I said. I'm right here. I found an address. She read it slowly, and I wrote every digit. 2814, Forsyth Street, apartment 4C, Savannah, Georgia. That's 15 hours from me, I said. I know. She paused. Dad, something happened to me today. I went outside and a woman walked past me and she looked straight at me and then she looked straight through me and kept walking. Not like she was ignoring me, like she genuinely did not see me there. And I reached out to touch a railing and my hand went cold before it made contact, like the air itself was wrong around me. I told her what I had told myself for 4 days. You're not a ghost. You called me. You're talking to me right now. Ghosts don't use phones. She made a sound almost like a laugh. It sounded like her laugh and it destroyed me. Then what am I? She said. I don't know yet, I said. But I'm coming to find out. Stay where you are. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll try, she said. Her voice was small. Dad, I'm really scared. I know, I said. Me too, but I'm coming. I promise. The line went dead again. I did not pack carefully. I threw clothes in a bag and I filled a thermos with coffee and I started driving south at 4 inches the morning. I did not call anyone. I did not call my brother or my therapist or the one friend from work I still met for lunch sometimes. I got in my car and I drove toward my dead daughter's voice. 14 hours and 20 minutes later, I pulled onto Forsyth Street in Savannah, Georgia. It was a residential block. Old buildings, Spanish moss on the live oaks lining the sidewalk, the particular quality of evening light that Savannah has that makes everything look like it belongs to a different century. I drove slowly until I found the number 2814, a 4-story brick building, maintained, ordinary, mailboxes in the lobby visible through the glass door. A sign beside the door listed the property management company. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes. I did not know what I expected to find. My daughter had told me she was in apartment 4C, but my daughter was buried in a cemetery 4 states north of where I was sitting. I called her number, the recording. I tried twice more. I got out of the car. The front door of the building required a code or a key fob. I waited near the entrance until a man came out with grocery bags and held the door for me without thinking. Inside, the lobby smelled like floor cleaner and old wood. I took the stairs to the 4th floor. The door to 4C was at the end of the hall. Plain wood door, brass number, a small mat in front that said welcome in faded letters. I stood in front of it for a long time. My hand would not rise to knock. Then I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. I pressed my ear to the door and heard nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. I went back downstairs and found the building manager's office on the ground floor. A woman in her 50s looked up when I came in. I told her my name and I told her I was looking for the resident of 4C. I said it was a family matter. She looked at me for a moment and then she looked at her computer. 4C is rented to a Miss Rachel Voss, she said. She's been here about 3 years. Rachel Voss, I said. Do you know anything about her? The manager shook her head. Quiet tenant. Pays on time. Works at the hospital, I think. I see her coming in sometimes in scrubs. I thanked her and went back to my car. I pulled out my phone and I searched for Rachel Voss, Savannah, Georgia. Several results, most irrelevant. Then a staff page for Memorial Health Savannah. Rachel Voss, patient advocate, social work department. I sat very still. My daughter had been studying social work. She had wanted to be an advocate for broken families, for people who fell through the cracks of systems that were supposed to hold them. And a woman named Rachel Voss, same building, same apartment number my daughter had given me, worked as a patient advocate at a hospital in Savannah, Georgia. I drove to the hospital. I did not have a plan. I sat in the parking lot until it was nearly 8 in the evening, and I watched people come and go through the main entrance, and I did not know what I was doing there or what I expected to happen. Then I saw her. She came out through the side exit near the parking garage. Scrubs, dark blue, hair pulled back. She was walking quickly, the way people walk at the end of a long shift when their feet hurt and their mind is already somewhere else. She passed under a parking lot light, and I saw her face. I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from opening the car door. She looked like Claire. Not exactly like Claire. She was older, which Claire would have been, 39 or 40. Lines at the corners of her eyes that Claire never got to have. But the shape of her face, the way she held her shoulders, the slight forward lean in her walk that Linda always said came from being in a hurry to get somewhere, all of it was Claire. I watched her get into a silver Subaru 3 rows over and drive away. I followed her back to the apartment building on Forsyth Street. I watched her park and go inside. I sat in the dark outside for an hour, and then I drove to a motel, and I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, and I did not sleep. The next morning I called a number I had not called in 11 years. Dr. Patricia Owens. She had been the attending physician on call the night Claire was brought to Vanderbilt. I had spoken to her once, briefly, in those first terrible hours. Her name was on the death certificate. I had memorized it, the way you memorize things you never want to know. It took me 3 calls through the hospital system to track her down. She was still on staff, now a department head. Her assistant told me she was in meetings all morning. I said it was regarding a patient from 18 years ago and that I had new information that was medically significant. 40 minutes later, Dr. Owens called me back. She remembered the case. I could tell by the way her voice changed when I said Claire's name. "Some cases stay with you," she said carefully. "How can I help you?" I told her everything, the phone calls, the voice, the address in Savannah, the woman with my daughter's walk coming out of a hospital in social work scrubs. I told her all of it, and I waited for her to tell me I needed psychiatric help. She didn't. Instead, she was quiet for a very long time. Then she asked, "Mr. Holden, do you remember that there was a second patient brought in that same night from the same stretch of interstate?" I didn't. I remembered nothing about that night except Claire's face and the sound of Linda crying. There was another young woman, Dr. Owens said. She came in approximately 20 minutes after Claire. Same highway, different location, single vehicle accident. She had gone off the road into a culvert. She was in critical condition. Head trauma. Extensive. She survived, but when she regained consciousness 2 weeks later, she had no memory of her identity. No ID had been found at the scene. Her vehicle had been registered to an address that turned out to be a mailbox service with no forwarding information. She was a Jane Doe. I gripped the phone. "What happened to her?" I said. "She was treated for 3 months," Dr. Owens said. "She underwent extensive neurological evaluation. The amnesia appeared to be genuine, complete retrograde. She had no recall of her name, her family, her history. Social services helped her establish a new identity. She chose her own name. She was given help finding housing and employment." "What was the name she chose?" I said. Silence. "Mr. Holden." Her voice was careful. "The name she chose was Rachel." The room tilted. "I need you to understand something," Dr. Owens continued. "The 2 patients that night had similar injuries. Both young women, similar height and build, both brought from the same general stretch of interstate. In the chaos of a trauma night, with overwhelmed staff and multiple critical cases coming in simultaneously, there is a possibility, and I want to be careful about how I say this, there is a possibility that records were not kept with the precision they should have been in those first minutes." "Are you telling me," I said, and my voice did not sound like mine, "are you telling me that you may have identified the wrong person?" "I am telling you," she said slowly, "that I would like to see a DNA test before I say anything further. I am telling you that what you are describing is enough to warrant one. And I am telling you that if you can get a sample, I will personally oversee the comparison against the tissue samples we retain from the original case file." She told me the hospital retained biological samples from unidentified remains for a period of 25 years per state regulation. Claire's samples were still on file. The Jane Doe's case file was still on file. I drove to Forsyth Street, and I parked, and I waited. Rachel Voss came home at 6:40 that evening. I got out of my car and walked toward the entrance of the building at the same time she was pulling her key from her bag. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. Up close, in full evening light, I had to stop walking. I had to stop and stand still and breathe through the thing that was happening to my chest. She looked at me with polite confusion. "Can I help you?" "I'm sorry to bother you," I said. "My name is Thomas Holden. I'm from Tennessee. I'm looking for someone, and I think you might know something about it." She shifted her bag on her shoulder. "What kind of something?" I took a step closer. "I'm looking for someone I lost a long time ago. Someone who would be about your age now. And I noticed that you work in social work at Memorial Health." She studied me. "That's not unusual in Savannah. Lots of people work at Memorial." "I know," I said. "I know this is strange. But can I ask you something? Have you ever had the feeling that part of your life is missing? Not just forgotten. Missing. Like there's a chapter that simply isn't there." Her expression shifted. It was small. A tightening around the eyes. A slight stillness that came over her face that had not been there before. "Why would you ask me that?" she said quietly. "Because I lost a daughter 18 years ago," I said. "And 3 weeks ago, she called me from a phone number that had been disconnected for 16 years, and she gave me your address." Rachel Voss did not move for a long time. The evening noise of the street continued around us. Somewhere a dog barked. A car passed with music playing. "That's not possible," she said. "I know," I said. She looked down at her keys, then back up at me. "I was in an accident," she said. "A long time ago. I don't remember anything from before it. I chose my name. I built my life from nothing. I've been in therapy for years trying to understand who I was before, and there's just nothing there." "I understand," I said. She looked at me with something raw and careful in her expression. "And you think I'm your daughter?" "I think there's a chance," I said. "I think something happened the night of that accident that nobody understood. 2 young women, same highway, same night, similar injuries. I think there may have been a mistake. And I think you deserve to know the truth as much as I do." I reached into my jacket pocket, and I held out the DNA kit Dr. Owens had sent me by overnight courier that morning. "This is a cheek swab," I said. "A doctor at Vanderbilt will run it against samples they have on file from that night. We'll know within 48 hours. If I'm wrong, you'll never see me again, and I'll get the help people have been telling me to get for 18 years. But if I'm right, if there's even a chance that I'm right, don't you want to know?" She looked at the kit. She looked at me. She looked at the kit again. "I've been dreaming," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "For the past month, dreams I don't understand. A house in the mountains, green and white, with a porch. A woman with blonde hair who might be my mother. A man who stands in the background watching me, and every time I try to turn to face him, I wake up. My house in Knoxville had green shutters and white siding. Linda had blonde hair. I had stood in the background at every school play and every piano recital and every graduation because I was always the one holding the camera." My throat closed completely. She pressed her lips together hard. "Okay," she said. Her voice shook. "Do the swab." I opened the kit with hands that would not stay steady. She opened her mouth, and I gently swabbed the inside of her cheek and sealed the sample in the tube and zipped it into the prepaid return envelope, which I had already addressed to Dr. Owens at Vanderbilt. "What do we do now?" Rachel asked. She wrapped her arms around herself, the way Claire used to when she was cold or uncertain. "We wait," I said. "And maybe, if you're willing, we talk." She was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "There's a coffee shop on the corner," she said. "I usually go there to decompress after a shift." We walked to the coffee shop on the corner and we sat across from each other in a booth by the window, and I did not know where to start. So I started at the beginning. I told her about Claire, about the green eyes and the stubborn jaw and the laugh, about the social work degree and the youth mentoring program, about the Sunday visits to the cemetery for 18 years. She listened to every word. She held her coffee cup in both hands and she listened, and sometimes something crossed her face that I recognized, and sometimes she looked like a stranger hearing a story that had nothing to do with her, and sometimes she looked like both. At once. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I've always been drawn to social work," she said finally. "I don't know why. When I was trying to figure out who I was after the accident, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. Help people who were lost. People who didn't know who they were or where they belonged. She paused. I never thought about why. I thought about what Dr. Owens had said. Even if the DNA matches, she is not the same person you lost. 18 years of living as someone else changes a person. She looked up at me. What if the test comes back positive, she said. What then? I'm not her. I don't remember being her. I've built a whole life. Then we figure it out, I said. I'm not asking you to stop being Rachel Voss. I'm not asking you to become someone you don't remember. I just want to know the truth. Whatever happens after that, we deal with together. She looked out the window at the street. If it's positive, she said, then someone else is buried under my name. Yes, I said. Do you know who? Not yet, I said, but we'll find out. She absorbed that. She turned her coffee cup in small circles on the table. I need to tell you something, she said. And I need you to know I'm not saying it to hurt you. I might be your daughter. The DNA might say so. But I don't feel it yet. I don't feel a connection. I'm sitting across from you, and I can see that you're in pain, and I believe that you believe what you're telling me, but I don't feel the thing I think a daughter is supposed to feel. I understand, I said. The word cost me something, but I meant it. If the test comes back positive, will you give me time? She said. Will you let me find it at my own pace instead of expecting me to feel it immediately? Yes, I said. However long it takes. She nodded. Then she did something I did not expect. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine for just a moment. Just a second. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Whatever the test says. Thank you for not giving up. I drove the test sample to a FedEx location that night and sent it overnight to Vanderbilt. Then I drove back to the motel and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a long time. I stayed in Savannah. I could not leave. I ate breakfast at a diner near the motel, and I walked along the riverfront, and I sat on benches in Forsyth Park, and I waited. Rachel and I texted twice. Short messages. She let me know she had told her therapist about our meeting. The therapist thought the DNA test was a reasonable step. She did not say much else. I called my brother on the second day. He thought I had lost my mind. He said it gently because he is a gentle person, but he said it. I told him I understood why he thought that, and that I was going to wait for the test results before I argued with him. On the morning of the third day, Dr. Owens called. Mr. Holden. Her voice was strange, careful and shaken at the same time. Tell me, I said. The sample from Rachel Voss matches the maternal and paternal genetic markers we have on file from the Claire Holden case. She paused. Mr. Holden, the young woman you found in Savannah is your biological daughter. I sat down on the motel bed because I had no choice. There's something else, Dr. Owens said. I spent the last 2 days going through the original records from that night. There was a second patient, a Jane Doe who did not survive. She was brought in 40 minutes after your daughter, from the same stretch of highway, also a single vehicle accident. She had no identification. She was approximately 20 years old, similar height and build to Claire. She was pronounced at 4:45 a.m. I believe, and the records support this, that in the confusion of that night, the body of this second young woman was misidentified as your daughter. I believe the woman whose face you saw in that hospital room, the woman whose body you buried, was not Claire. Who was she? I said. Her voice was heavy. It took us 18 years to find out. But with modern DNA databases, we were able to run a comparison. Her name was Amy Denton. She was 20 years old, from Cookeville, Tennessee. She had been reported as a runaway by her parents 2 years before the accident. No one ever came to claim her. No one ever knew what happened to her. Amy Denton, I said. Yes, said Dr. Owens. She deserves a proper grave with her real name on it. Her parents are still alive. They have been looking for her for 20 years. I sat with that for a while. A girl named Amy who disappeared and was never found, and was buried under my daughter's name while her parents spent 20 years not knowing. A wound with no closure on 2 sides. I will help with whatever that family needs, I said. I called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. She already knew something from the silence before I spoke. People who have spent their lives in uncertainty learn to read silences. It's positive, I said. The sound she made was not crying exactly. It was something older and more complicated than crying. I know, she said when she could speak. I know this should feel like good news. And part of me feels something, I don't know what to call it, but part of me is terrified. I know, I said. I have a life here, she said. I have an apartment and a job and a therapist and a cat named George and people at the hospital who know me as Rachel. I can't just become someone else. You don't have to, I said. You can stay Rachel Voss if that's what you want. You can stay in Savannah. The DNA doesn't change your apartment or your cat or your colleagues. It just means you have a father who is standing in a parking lot in Georgia, crying and would very much like to have a cup of coffee with you when you're ready. She laughed through the tears. It was almost her laugh. It was the laugh of someone becoming her laugh. I drove to the coffee shop. She was already there when I arrived, at the same booth by the window. She had ordered my coffee without asking. Black, because something in her remembered. She didn't say anything when I sat down. She pushed the cup toward me and I took it. We sat there for 3 hours. I told her about her childhood. Her first words, dog, because we had a beagle named Chester. The time she climbed the apple tree in the backyard and could not get down. The way she cried at every sad movie but denied it and called it allergies. Her college visit to UT, how she had walked the campus once and said, "This is it. This is where I belong." She listened. She asked questions. Sometimes she said, "I don't remember," and sometimes she said, "That's strange. I've always done that." And once she said very quietly, "I dream about a beagle sometimes. I didn't know where that came from." Over the weeks that followed, we met every Sunday, sometimes at the coffee shop, sometimes walking along the riverfront while the Spanish moss moved overhead. I drove down from Tennessee, and I drove back, and I came again the following weekend. It was the same drive every time, and it felt nothing like a burden. She came to Knoxville once, in December. She stood in the doorway of her old bedroom and looked at the posters and the books and the lotion on the dresser, and she said it out loud, the same thing she had said in my heart for 18 years. "It looks like someone was here." "She was here," I said. "She is here," she said. She met her mother once. Linda drove up from Charlotte, and we all sat in a restaurant booth, and it was awkward and careful, and nobody cried until the parking lot afterward. But it was something. The beginning of something. The grave at Elmwood Memorial Park was examined. Amy Denton's remains were carefully and respectfully moved to a new plot in Cookeville, Tennessee, near her parents, with her real name on the stone. Her father is 73 years old. Her mother is 69. They cried for 3 days straight, they told me. They said they had never stopped looking. They said having a grave to visit changed something for them that could not have been changed any other way. I had Claire's headstone removed. I had the plot rededicated. Then I had a small memorial placed there instead, a bench under the maple tree, with no name on it, just a line that Claire had written in a paper during her freshman year of college, which her professor had given to me at the funeral, and which I had kept in a drawer ever since. The line said, "Every broken thing is looking for the person willing to try." The calls stopped after the DNA results came back. Whatever had found its way through that disconnected number, whatever had sent my daughter's voice across 18 years of silence to say, "Dad, I don't know where I am," it stopped when I found her, as though that was the only task it had. I don't know what to call what happened. I am not a religious man, and I am not a superstitious one. I spent 31 years calculating load tolerances and material stress thresholds. I believe in things that can be measured, but my daughter called me from a phone that had been disconnected for 16 years. She gave me an address. She led me to her. I buried my daughter 18 years ago. I visited her grave every Sunday. I talked to a stone and brought white roses, and I learned to walk around the hole she left in everything. And then she called me from the other side of that hole and said she was just lost. And I went and found her and brought her home. That is all I know. That is all I need to know.